TitleMatchNetwork.com.
What are some other early territories that you were? I think in the 60s you went to Australia with Jim Barnett.
Well, 69 is when we started, and Barnett had Murdoch over there, I think, one time.
Right.
And me and Murdoch had become partners, which is a book in itself in Kansas City. And you were there 14 weeks. He was making $700 a week, which was top money at that time. 800 he was making. And I was his tag team partner. I was making 700. And after 2 TV shows, I did an interview with me and Murdoch. And Barnett came up to me because he loved that. That's the dog snoring. Is that cool?
No, it's fine. No,
that's fine. Get with it. So he came and he came over to me, Barnett, in front of Murdoch because he loved doing it like this. Because Barnett loves to stir it. And if he could stir it, he wanted to keep everybody off balance, And he said, "I'm going to give you $900. And I don't want you to talk anymore, Dickie." You know what I mean? Right in front of him. So he's trying to cause dissension between the two and everything. So the way I got around that, on the interview, I'd do the interview. And at the end, Dickie loved to sing the Tammy Wynette song, "Stand By Your Man." He thought he was a singer. Actually, on TV. And I would say, "Hit it, Dick." And Dick would sing the song, but I wouldn't do an interview. And it was horrible, man. And he had so much heat, they wanted to throw us out of the thing. But, Australia, 13 weeks, beautiful country. After 9 weeks, I was ready to go to the house, yeah.
Also in the 70s, you worked for Leroy McGuirk in Oklahoma?
Yeah, Leroy was, Bill Watts was there, and Leroy was actually the first wrestling picture that I took of myself was in Leroy's territory. And Bill Watts made me the Brass Knucks champion.
Right.
Sputnik Monroe, Danny Hodge, Skandar boy Jim Weaver, as you know, was the manager. The Assassins, and it was good. It was good because I really got started then in the business as we know it. Before, because Fritz had actually started me in Dallas and Joe and them guys, but I wasn't there for about 4 or 5 months, and I learned a lot. And I went to Oklahoma, and then my dad passed away, and Dustin was born on the same day. And so it was. I was still in Dallas. It started at the time with no money, and when I'll never forget this. Fritz came to me and he called me on the phone. Blanchard called me and said, I called him on and said my dad passed away. We were supposed to be in Fort Worth on Monday night. This was Saturday, and Dustin was born. He said, "Well, you be waiting because I'm gonna come back and get you going to work." He told me the value of this business, the respect that he had for this business, to not miss a shot. There was no contracts, there was no nothing. And he said, "Your dad would want you." My dad was a big fan. So we went to work. Fritz set me down, gave me $280. We didn't have money to bury my dad at the time. I was the oldest. And I got the $280. I worked the show. Me and Joe got drunk. And he brought me back home to Austin. And I guess about 2 or 3 years later, I'd seen Fritz once I left there. And I went back and gave him the $280 back that he had loaned me, and said thank you. And he wouldn't take it, but it was cool. It was kind of a really cool thing with him. He was the best. Fritz and the Sheik, the real Sheik.
Really?
Eddie Forehead was the best 2 heels, best 2 gimmicks in the business. Bar none. There was nobody even close because they lived that gimmick.
Right. 24
hours a day. And you could tell the kids nowadays, if you say, what is the most important thing for you to do is to, if you're going to be successful, you have to live that gimmick 24 hours a day. And they were. I mean, Sheik on his credit card, Jesus, entourage with him, And Fritz was just, he demanded a respect that was unbelievable when you were around him,
Right.
And he was over like a son of a bitch. Jesus, was he over in that area. And guys now can't I don't think guys understand how big the areas were, you know, or the territories as they call them, how big they were to where just in that area you could become like a god, you know. I mean, just wealth or whatever, you know, but it was important.
I guess also in the 70s, you worked for Verne, AWA, with
Yes.
Dick Murdoch, and you did it with Crusher and Bruiser.
Yeah, I did an interview. On TV, and the Crusher had retired. And every time the Crusher would retire, he would wait till a new heel came in, you know.
Right.
And he heard me do the interview. He got wind of it, so he said it's coming out of retirement. So thank God he did, because at that time I had worked very few times and made like $5 or $6 grand, you know, which was huge money back then, man. And I remember Ray Stevens, God rest his soul, and Nick Bachwick were telling me it was so cold up there when I first went there from Texas. They were telling me that if I said I'm going home after the first night, it was like 50 below zero going to Duluth, Minnesota. And I said, I'm going home, man. He said, no, stay here. This is how big money was then. 50 grand was big.
Right.
So we'll buy you a contract for 50 if you don't make more than that, if you stay here. They talked me into staying. And I stayed and brought Murdoch in after I'd had a good run there, you know. And we just raised hell, man. I mean, just...
you guys were heels at the time, right?
Yeah, they in Chicago, they would start, we want juice, we want blood at 7:30 in the Chicago Amphitheater. We would be on with Crusher and the Bruiser. They would start chanting at 7:30, you know, and Bobby Heenan, you know, managed us and the Blackjacks, you know, to want us to go out and get our ass kicked, you know. And we would go out and get our ass kicked, you know, and still have a lot of heat, you know. That's hard to do.
Back in its heyday, going back a little bit to the Von Erichs, you worked for Fritz when you first started out, but you never went down there.
He started me.
Right.
Yeah, Fritz actually started me. Danny Pletcher gave my name. Dusty Rhodes. I was always Dusty, the street I grew up in Austin. My dad was a big baseball fan, and he loved the New York Giants pinch hitter Dusty Rhodes. Dusty Rhodes that I lived on. It just came out. Danny Pletcher said, hey, man, why don't you call yourself Dusty Rhodes? He was like assistant booker and shit for Fritz, you know, one of the old guys there, Bulldog Danny Pletcher. And I just love, you know, the name, and I loved it. 74, the American Dream was a creation of mine that came out of my head. And it meant something because I made it real. You know, I didn't do an interview, or I gave them a message with it. And I still do today with the kids and the people that it is. It's corny, I know, for this interview, but the American Dream, there is one. No matter what, yeah, there is. We're all living it. So.
You want to talk about West Texas State with football? And I think you were there with Brody, Anton, and Funks.
Yeah, you know, there were like 15 guys that came out of West Texas State that wrestled professionally. And when you say 3 world heavyweight champions, both Funks and myself, and Stan Henson and Brody, and like Hoyt Richard Murdoch, you know, Dickie, he got rest his soul. He always claimed to play there. He never did, but he played in all the alumni games and everything. But he was a very big part of that thing. And Solis, remember the Tito Santana,
right? And
Tully Blanchard. I mean, the list is on and on. And West Texas was a last resort for me, because when I was getting ready to go to college, I got a scholarship to Sul Ross State University, which is in Alpine, baseball and football. And I got in some trouble there, and I got kicked out of school. Stayed there, didn't tell my parents. In Austin, I stayed there a semester. And then I went to Tarleton State University, which is another small school, right? And how I got in that university was a friend of mine, Ed Pettit, fullback. He had the same problem at Sul Ross State University in Alpine, Texas. And the problem was he had to change schools swiftly. So he went to Tarleton, and he gave these guys a tape of the center who was an All-American. His name was Warren Sheeler. But he said it was me. So they brought me, this actually happened. And they brought me in to give me a scholarship at Tarleton. And I was having a hard time. I wasn't big into school right there. And so I think I passed 1 hour, which was PE. Right. So I left there. then I had a scholarship to go to West Texas State. Bobby Duncan and all them kids went there. And so I actually ended up going there, you know, and playing football. And that's where I met the Funks.
Right.
And Thursday night was at the fairgrounds was I would talk more about Funk because I'm talking about him now a little more somber than I usually would because of his affiliation with me,
Right.
and his refusal to recognize that the only reason that he didn't have his ranch or his home or his wife or anything is because I made him what he is. And he refuses to, even on your interview that you did with him, to give me any credit except he's using the phrase from the 60s. I believe it still is. The internet even uses it now. Is it a fat egg sucking dog? I think is his phrase for me. So anyway, they all got off on him a little bit, but anyway, they were there, and we would go to the matches. And as a kid growing up, I remember 7 or 8 years old, I produced matches in the backyard, like we see now, where you see the thing on Cactus Jack,
Right.
where he was jumping off the barn and stuff. But we would build a ring, and I would be like the promoter even back then, and I would book the matches at 8, 9, 10 years old, with me always winning. And I was against, Luthez or whoever it was, you know, at the time. And the industry was so intriguing to me that I wanted to do it. And so at West Texas, it gave me the opportunity to, and I didn't start there. You know, I don't know if anybody knows. Well, we're going to find out where I started today. I didn't start there. I had went up to play football with the Hartford Charter Oaks in Hartford, Connecticut, who was in the Continental Football League at the time. Al Rosen was the commissioner. They were trying to make it like the USFL. And I came there from Orlando to Hartford to play football. They went bankrupt, and the football team closed. I went to Tony Santos in Boston Arena Annex. And I said, I'd been down in Amarillo, down in Texas, and I had learned to wrestle, you know, and I needed some work. He sent me to the gym with a guy named Billy Graham, not the Billy Graham.
Right.
Bill Graham, I think his name was. He was a shooter, hooker. Well, I come out, you know, I was about 240, and it was pretty good shape for football. Consider myself, you know, pretty tough son of a bitch at the time. So he took me in the gym to hook me, I guess, you know what I mean? And we ended up being pretty good friends because all he asked me, he said, can you drop kick, you know? When we got in the ring there, and I said, I didn't have a fucking clue, but I knew I was good. So I did. I drop kicked him. He went and told the guys he was good. So they put me on. First night I was against Frank Scarpa for the World Heavyweight Champion in Boston Arena Annex. So I worked 3 shots, and I got enough money to go back to Texas, which was $27.
Right.
And gas was cheaper back then, obviously. So I headed back to Texas. And that's kind of how it got started on that West Texas thing there. And I can be more elaborate on it, but it's actually Joe Blanchard taught me how to work, to wrestle, to talk, to put up the ring, to sell the popcorn. He was my mentor starting in the business. So I went back, regrouped, trained, and got trained with him. So he was a big influence on me.
TitleMatchNetwork.com